Good afternoon or good morning, wherever you are. It's Matt Coleman here, one of the co-founders of Magnify World. Today, we have a very special guest and a very special subject that I'm personally very interested in, as well as many of you coming into the future of smart glasses. And we have Jason McDowall, who's head of visual experience for Ostendo Technologies from Los Angeles. Welcome, Jason. How are you?
Thank you very much. I'm fantastic, Matt. I appreciate you inviting me on today.
Now, you also have the AR show, so we can give that a plug at the end. But the specialty of the AR show is smart glasses. So Ostendo is a really interesting future company coming onto the market. Can you tell me what you can about this new innovation and what you're doing? And I know you want to share a slide or two just to take the listeners through what's going on.
Yeah, my pleasure. I have to admit that usually I'm the one asking all the questions. So when I stumble and trip over all of my answers, you can appreciate, how much editing goes into the finished product of the AR show in the end. But I appreciate here the opportunity to share a little bit. Ostendo is a technology company that's at this precipice of this new form of personal computing. Right? We've had this multiple waves over the many decades here of going from mainframe to, minis that sit on our desk, to these true, personal desktop computers, to having these desktop computers be connected to each other, to making those desktop computers actually fit in our pocket and they're mobile around with us all the time. And there's a lot of belief across the industry that there is this next era coming. And this next era is really defined by wearability, about this ability to actually wear the device and interact with the world hands-free while seeing both the digital information as well as the real world at the same time. That's kind of the dream. And the way that we can kind of think about Ostendo within that overall opportunity is that we see ourselves as really the Intel of this next era of personal computing. As Intel, made some tremendous innovations around microprocessors and what was possible in a single chip in terms of its ability to compute and perform useful things, that really unlocked what came, in the decades afterward. And so Ostendo is a company that's found a way to incorporate really advanced microprocessor design with nano-scale photonics, kind of the integration of intelligent computers with intelligent light. And the goal has been to make light smarter, make light more useful, make light more efficient in all the ways that we interact with it. And certainly within the context of AR, that means enabling the sort of glasses that you or I might actually be caught wearing, out in public and being useful for us in our day-to-day lives.
Why don't you just share a slide or two? Because I think it comes to life when you're learning about this particular side of the market. It is new. And, from where Google Glass sort of came from, and I noticed you shared an article that smart glasses have been 50 years in the making recently. That might have been the latest post, actually. It's not really new, but they say that about augmented reality and virtual reality, particularly when you see the lawnmower man. Basically,
yeah, that's true.
That's right. He created his own experience many years ago. But Google Glass is what everybody really knows, and I mean, how long ago was that?
That was 2013 that they publicly announced that.
So many moons ago. And today, I think I feel like we're on a ledge and ready to leap off into the new world here with all these new smart glass innovations, and we'll get into what's coming and all the experiences. But I'll let you share your screen while you're just getting that. I was having a little chat.
So let me share here. See if we can make it all work. I just wanted to share a couple of slides to help visualize what it is that we're doing. But I'll kind of put it in the context. I'm going to jump around in this slides in this particular deck. But just you mentioned specifically Google Glass. And I think it's a wonderful jumping off point, I think, to really appreciate the challenge that even the largest companies in the world have faced in trying to make something that is both good and small. As you noted, I put a post out today, I think it was, where we've been at this maybe for 50 or so years, right? And this is 1968 or so. Ivan Sutherland and his team had put together this contraption called the Sword of Damocles. And it was really the first example of a see-through augmented reality system. It overlaid, digital information on top of the physical world, but it was this, room-sized contraption that was connected to the ceiling and everything else. But that was really the dawn of this sort of augmenting our world and our experiences. And it's been a long time. In the 90s, it was really about, can we make this thing portable? And it was at that point where they were able to take what fit inside of a room and put it on a backpack. And so like a multi-day hiker camping out in the wilderness, there'd be that size of backpack with all this different equipment, and it would do the same sort of functionality. And I think that Google in 2013, Microsoft with HoloLens 1 and now HoloLens 2 have demonstrated that many billions of dollars can yield some engineering marvels, some really spectacular pieces of hardware, which can be appreciated best by enthusiasts and engineers, but aren't really appreciated well by consumers. And it is a real challenge to create these devices that accomplish their intended goal, which is to get out of the way while still giving you the sort of information that is useful. Anyway, the slide I have up here, as you've been staring at this as I've been chit-chatting, is this notion of these three axes that I like to think about in terms of what good looks like. And on one axis, we have visual quality, which is this notion of, it has to look good, not just the digital information. Of course, that has to look good too, but the physical world has to look good. You can't be blocking or distorting the real world. You have to incorporate that real with the digital. That's kind of the idea behind visual quality here. Another axis is around device comfort. And that comfort is not just, can I wear it for an extended period of time? It's, do I want to wear it out in public where other people are seeing me? It's both physical comfort as well as social comfort. And then the third axis is really around context. The device needs to do something useful for you, add to your life. And really for it to add, it needs to have some awareness of what's important to you, what's going on with you, what's happening in the environment around you. So these are the three axes. And the challenge I think that Google highlighted is that they've made small. Microsoft made kind of okay, good in terms of, it is aware of its world, it has some amazing technology in it, but it's not particularly small. The visual experience itself is, and especially in the HoloLens 2, is not good at all, or not great, I should say. But this visual engine, this notion that these pieces are of making it both good and small, are really driven to a large extent by the quality of the display system that goes inside of it and the ability of the system to get that light from that display and bend it into your eyes. Those two pieces I kind of lump together as a visual engine, this kind of display and the combiner optics. And this is the area where Ostendo plays. It's a very long preamble, so apologies for that. This is the area where Ostendo plays, and this is a representation of the things that we are doing as a company. So we've created a brand new way of generating and controlling photons. The core of the company is really around this really precise understanding of how electrons are converted into photons and being able to control that conversion process, being able to control those photons in the first moments of their life as they're emerging from the display system, and presenting photonic information in a way that is most suitable for actually creating a pair of wearable glasses. So that's the core. We call it the quantum photonic imager. It is the world's first and only full-color, truly micro-LED microdisplay. And one of the attributes of this core technology, and there are a couple of other companies that are working on micro-LED, but one of the key attributes here is that it's highly manufacturable at scale. System is not good enough if it only works in the lab. So this has been always, our perspective from the beginning is that how do we make this thing in a way that is truly scalable? And so we've done that. We've demonstrated, this full color, and I'll show you in just a second a picture of what that looks like. And then we've taken that, and because of the underlying architecture, it actually allows us to do away with a bunch of other pieces that are in a Google Glass or in a Microsoft HoloLens, and it marry this display with the last stage lens, the part you actually look through at the real world, in a way that's really space efficient and allows for a nice big digital information that's high resolution, that's wide field of view, all those attributes that are really important ultimately to that sort of visual experience there. That's primarily who we are. When we talk about ourselves as Intel of AR, or Intel of wearable devices, it's around this notion. How do we unlock? How do we make light smart and more useful and more efficient in the context of glasses? And then on the slide, I mentioned a reference design as well. This is something that we have built to display, to demonstrate, I should say, how our core technology, how our QPI works, and how it really unlocks new capabilities, new wearabilities within the sorts of devices. And depending on who we're engaging with, that reference design has more or less utility ultimately in the end. But let me show you.
Just a question: is this technology, a white label product that you can sell to any smart glass manufacturer, as an example, or is there a particular what's your main drive? Is it certain manufacturers, and what process? I mean, I think you're saying there's 400 patents based around the product, which is an enormous amount of patents. So you must have found a lot of leading edge tech inside what you're doing. At what stage will this launch into the future, into a real product, or has that been? Can you explain that to the viewers?
Yeah. Like Intel, our intention is to be a primary component supplier to others who are making the glasses. So it is not our intention that you are wearing an Ostendo branded pair of glasses. It's our intention that you're wearing a pair of glasses from your favorite major technology company that is powered by Ostendo. That's our intention. So the image you're seeing on the screen right here is the display. And it is connected, as you can see, on a flex connector. It's super tiny, it's super thin, and the image processing and the conditioning of the light, the collimation of the light, all that stuff is happening on chip. So it's kind of like a system on a chip, SoC sort of designed for light processing. That's what we've got going on here. And so this is the primary thing we'll sell into the market. So this would be, your favorite major tech company would be buying this. And then in addition, we would be selling the lens through which you would look. So we would notionally have, what if in this deck, if I have the
It's interesting. So that size of chip or screen, lens size, I guess you call it, I can see there, is incredibly small compared to a coin, as you just had.
That was the smallest U.S. coin right there. That's a dime, and it's tiny compared to even the dime. Yeah, it's a really small chip with really tiny pixel pitch sizes. And one of the benefits of having such a small chip and being able to condition the light as it's emerging from the chip means that we get to do away with a bunch of other components, and we can marry the chip right up against the edge of the lens itself, that final stage combiner optic. And that allows you, plus we have a lot of experience tiling these sorts of displays together. And so this allows us to create a device that has a really wide field of view, because we're able to tile multiple chips right up against the very edge of that combiner optic. And so these are the pieces.
One of my other questions, Jason, is, first of all, can you please explain to the non-techies what that megapixel means in resolution as well? And also the field of vision, it's the current mixed reality or, VR headsets are limited, obviously. Be great for you to answer those two questions when you can.
The resolution in practical terms means like the number of pixels. Let me put it this way. The number of pixels is not nearly as important as the angular resolution. So you can think of angular resolution. You experience angular resolution, let me put it this way, as you are sitting in your living room staring at your TV. A modern, as we went from old school pre-HD to an HD TV and now a 4K TV, this notion is as a pixel count across the entire screen. And we use that as a rough sense for how can I perceive the boundaries between each of these pixels? Like, how immersive is this visual display in front of me? And when you're sitting on your couch and that TV is on your wall, that number of pixels we've kind of correlated. 1K or an HD display, because 2K technically, but HD display looks good. 4K display looks amazing. That's what we've correlated. But in practice, if you were to stand right up against that TV and put your nose against the screen and turn it on, you're going to perceive the gaps between all those pixels. What really matters is how far away those pixels are from your eyes. And so this notion of how much of your vision, how many pixels are there within each degree of your view of the world, 360 degrees all around your head, how many pixels are there within each degree is a better reference for, is it a high quality visual experience? And when we talk about this sort of micro displays, talking about it as, there are 1,000 rows of pixels, or there are 4,000 rows of pixels, is not nearly as instructive as how many pixels fill in each one of the degrees within my field of view. Right? That's that notion of angular resolution. We want ultimately more pixels within each degree because that gives us a higher resolution experience. And we need a higher resolution experience in order to comfortably read text, in order to kind of see the sort of digital information and still also see the real world at the same time. This notion of being able to clearly see that digital information, of course, is critical. And so when we think about this notion of field of view, we as humans have the ability within our, if we move our eyeballs enough, we can get up to, 200 plus degrees off the sides. Notionally, though, we kind of more focus on what's happening in front of us. If you're wearing a normal pair of glasses, it's more, out here, 100 plus degrees. And what makes sense in terms of, digital information, how much of that field of view needs to be covered in digital information. If you're trying to create an alternative version of reality, where you're walking around and it's suddenly 1600s Renaissance Italy, and that's what you see the world as around you, that sort of full immersion requires a very wide field of view. But if the objective is really to focus on a piece of utility, a core task in front of you, I need to, I happen to be riding my bicycle and I want heads up or hands-free sort of information about what is happening right now with my performance, with my ride, with my map, with my safety of my surroundings, where there's a car coming up from the rear. That sort of information, you don't necessarily need a massive wide field of view. You can get by with a lot smaller field of view and be hugely better off within that experience because of that extra bit of digital information.
Excellent. So you've got up to 150 here. That's your optimal vision which is comfortable for everyone, you're saying. So that's great. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
So why don't we go into a couple of case study concepts around smart glasses in general. I think it was 3 years ago I wrote an article about the future of shopping. And of course, can you hold your phone up and see the specials? But, what's the IoT connection here and 5G into the future experience? Let's just talk about shopping as an example. Walking down the street, what do you think is going to be really reactive to consumers here with smart glasses?
I think that there are a few things about this embodiment of personal computing technology that smart glasses is that sets it apart meaningfully from things that have come before. We already have a computer in our pocket that's connected to the internet. And we call it a phone, a smartphone, because of its legacy, not because of how we use it necessarily today, right? We don't use the phone primarily to call. Typically, we use the phone for all of its computing capabilities. But the legacy of that device is that its first piece of utility was it could call anybody from nearly anywhere. Like that's its value. It's this notion of just-in-time coordination, that if I were a broker dealing with some high-value transaction that's very timely, I have my phone with me all the time. I can be reached all the time. I can make sure that transaction happens. There's money at stake in me being able to communicate quickly, effectively right now. That was the core value of that phone back in the day. And I think that there's a parallel set of capabilities that smart glasses enable. And those things are the fact that you don't have to hold it in your hand. Hands-free nature by itself is really powerful. The fact that it is able to deliver now just-in-time contextual insight, that it has the opportunity to be aware of what's happening to you or aware of what's happening in the environment and deliver information that makes sense right now and do that hands-free. I think that where those sorts of capabilities intersect are the places where we're going to see the sorts of use cases that will begin to make smart glasses viable at scale in terms of people buying them and actually using them, and ultimately a ubiquitous device. I think that the kind of utilities, the sort of, fundamental utility that these sorts of glasses, these capabilities unlock are around remote collaboration. Like this is the same back in the, we talked about the history. Back in the 90s, there's all these researchers playing with what are these AR glasses going to do for us? And they had identified these three kind of core use cases that we still talk a lot about today, especially within enterprise, but I think a lot of it applies to consumer as well. But talk about this notion of remote collaboration, this idea that whether we're trying to collaboratively design a product, or whether that's visualizing a building that's going up, or a remodel that's happening in this room, or some other design task, or we're trying to resolve a problem remotely. And there is a tremendous benefit for the expert who's in Cincinnati to guide the technician that's on the ground in front of the broken machine, and to do so much more effectively because the glasses are hands-free, cameras directly on the devices to see what I see, sort of thing. And I can use my hands and I can have information that's directly overlaid as I'm trying to, understand and repair this device in front of me. This notion of remote collaboration is really powerful. Guided instruction, kind of related to this notion, whether it's navigation or step-by-step instruction, and data visualization, kind of a broad scheme, broad concept here, whether that's trying to visualize what happened in the past, whether that's a historical reconstruction of some event standing at Gettysburg, or whether that's standing inside of a building and I have the construction blueprints. I know exactly what went into this thing. And so I'm looking at a wall, concrete barrier or sheetrock, whatever it happens to be, but I know what's happened behind it based on the plans, the historical data there. So it's kind of a notion of historical visualization. Could be hypothetical, what could be here, or what's happening, overlaying real-time data visualization. Anyway, these three things around remote collaboration, guided instruction, and data visualization, I think, are the sorts of utilities that the unique capabilities of the glasses will unlock. And on the consumer side of things, I believe it's still those core values that we're going to see pop up in some useful ways. And like any sort of computing technology, informational technology, it often starts in the enterprise. IoT is a great example of where AR and IoT really connect well together. And we'll see it kind of evolve over time into consumer. But even just kind of jumping back to this notion on IoT, it's really about how do we see the set of equipment as it really is, beyond simply, I see some pipes or I see some circuitry or I can see some whatever. How can I look into what's really happening, be able to visualize the data in real time, going back to data visualization, what's really going on, what do I need to be aware of about what's going on right now? But on the consumer side, I can imagine these same values kind of fit into times when you're in motion, right? If I am doing something fitness related, whether it's doing a workout or whether I'm riding my bicycle or a motorcycle or I'm driving a car even, when I'm in motion, my hands are busy doing something else. And I might need guided instruction, whether that's a process step-by-step, counting my reps or navigation, that sort of thing, or whether that's, visualizing real-time data, what's happening right now. The same sorts of things that kind of fit here as well. So in motion is a category, I think, on the consumer side that makes sense. You noted this notion of out and about. And if I'm out and about and I'm shopping, whether that's navigation, you noted it was promotions, like what's the deal that makes sense for me right now? We have to make sure we're not overwhelming users ultimately in how they experience this sort of information. But being out and about, whether it's hands-free navigation, whether it's, I always imagine one of my favorite conceptual use cases is I love to travel. I'm also often traveling in places where I don't know the language. My command of English sometimes is questionable. So if I have an opportunity to engage in the world and see it in a way that is more comfortable for me because I'm seeing the translations or I'm hearing the translations, that by itself is really interesting. And decision-making insights around how do I get from this spot to that spot? Who should I be aware of as I'm going along that way because there's a special offer I should divert momentarily? What are the ratings of this particular establishment? Do I really want to go in there? These sorts of decision-making insights. Out and about makes a lot of sense. And even at home makes a lot of sense, right? We talk about whether it's preparing or repairing food in the kitchens or repairing some device, whatever it happens to be around your house. Whenever you're kind of doing something that's unfamiliar, this notion again of a guided instruction or even remote collaboration, bringing somebody outside in to help you work through, an issue. Anyway, I'm rambling here, but these are the sorts of places where I see the abilities, the capabilities of the AR system that's truly unique from a mobile phone shining, right? These are the places where it's better to have something that's hands-free and right there than pulling out your phone and studying, watching a bunch of YouTube videos and trying to figure out what's really going on and then going back to the device, and going back to the thing you're trying to fix or prepare. Anyway, it just feels like those are the areas where it really has an opportunity to take hold.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, it's kind of Waze, if you use Waze, it's Waze on glasses, isn't it? Really, it's showing you hotspots basically of interest. It's getting you there the fastest route, if you think that's right.
That's right.
Sometimes Waze sends me every back street known to man, and I have to cross the highway to get to the other side. But I'm sure they've solved that one now. But let's just talk also about the brands. And there's one particular brand that I like is Oakley, and they released an AR glass possibly maybe 2-3 years ago now, one of the earlier players. And I'm also a keen skier. They also released a, goggles when you're going down the slopes that connected to all your friends and gave you the mapping terrain. I think what happened to Oakley? Did they push through the AR thing? Because I know they were promoting sound as much as anything as well in their smart glasses. Do you have any comments about that?
I'm not as familiar with Oakley's specific story. I think they were partnering with. I'm gonna get it wrong, so I'm not even gonna say. They were partnering with a company who I believe is no longer actively supporting their underlying technology, and I think that might have made it more challenging for Oakley to continue, at least on that particular relationship with that particular product line. But I think the concepts that Oakley was chipping away at are valid. This notion that, skiing is a great example, or you're snowboarding, you need to interact, collaborate with your group while you're out there, to have a trail map that's in front of you as you need it. These sorts of things are useful in those contexts. How good it was, I didn't actually experience that specific product, but there's still this notion of being both small and good that we haven't quite figured out on the hardware side. We haven't really gotten to good and small yet. Yeah. The concept, the potential use case, I think, is there and valid.
I mean, we can talk about price in a minute, but I think the Oakley glasses originally were possibly around $200 or $300, but the goggles for skiing were $800-900. So it's quite a leap, but a pretty magic experience at the same time. What about the other current glasses in the market and what's coming out with Apple? And can you tell us a little bit about that North acquisition? Any comments around that as well?
Yeah, why don't we start with North?
Yeah.
There's just generally, maybe we'll back up a little bit. There's been a lot of smaller players trying to deliver on the promise of smart glasses that have really struggled over the last few years. ODG is one from a couple years back that is no longer with us. An extremely talented team who have now gone off and populated several of the other companies that are out there doing good things today. Meta was one that came and went. Daiquiri was around for quite a while. They're no longer with us. Bose shut down their audio-only efforts. It's kind of a morbid, I guess, a lot of morbidity in this area. And North, as you just noted, North recently was acquired by Google. And the rumored acquisition price, I have no specific insight into what went on either side here, but the rumored acquisition price suggests that it wasn't a win. Like, it wasn't something that North was really excited to do. We've as a business, we've accomplished our goals. That wasn't the sort of acquisition price they were talking about. From an engineering team perspective, they did some really amazing things. And my take on that is that there were a couple of uphill battles that North was still working through. And even just a little bit of background on that company, it started off as Thalmic Labs, and they were building a new way of gesture control. So it was an armband that would read the signals between your brain and your fingers, and as gesture input, because that was one of the big challenges for smart glasses. How do we deliver to the glasses our intention? What do we want out of them right now? And so they were playing with that before they pivoted, or kind of took the next step on their planned product roadmap, and focused on the glasses. And they delivered a pair of glasses to the market, and were planning to deliver a second when they had this exit. And I think that within this, they have not had enough time to iterate on the core use case itself. That is a contributing factor, right? If the core value they were delivering was so amazing and people could understand it before committing to purchasing it, right, that they might have had a different outcome. So they were still working on the use case, and I think they made some progress and made a tremendous amount of insights from that first version of the product. And the other big challenge they faced was that the friction of getting the glasses themselves was extremely high. You had to go in, at least early on, you had to go into a store when there was only one or two of them. You had to go into a store and get it specially fitted, because just the underlying technology that they were using required a tremendous amount of precision about where your eye was relative to the lens. And it required you to get custom fitted, and it took a while, and they shipped you the glasses. And so there was a high friction in getting the glasses, and you didn't have a lot of awareness before. You couldn't really picture yourself using it necessarily until you've had it. And you couldn't try on your friends very effectively because you probably were not getting the experience because your face was slightly different than theirs. So there's a high friction in getting the glasses, and the use case itself, they're still trying to, work through, dial in the ideal set of value there. I think both of those contributed to a state where they had to make a decision. Do we go on this path with Google, and Google's clearly committed to smart glasses as well, or do we roll the dice and try to continue on our own? And they seem to have made the choice that Google is the right home for the team and the technology and what they wanted to accomplish.
What's your thoughts on pricing, for a consumer product? I know I've seen it range, as I said before, from the skiing example, but where do you see that going now into the next 5 years in terms of pricing? Is it going to get more competitive? Is there going to be, multiple? Is there going to be 20 to choose from, 20 options, 20 brands to choose from, or is it going to consolidate even more, as you mentioned in the last conversation?
I'm not sure we're actually seeing consolidation per se right now. That's not really what's happening. We're still at a point in the market where we don't know what works. We don't know exactly what works on the hardware side of things. Ostendo as a company, we have a strong perspective that ours is the key missing ingredient to enable these sorts of companies to deliver on the promise of smart glasses. But collectively, from an outsider's perspective, we haven't figured it out yet. The glasses that are being delivered today are not good enough. That much we know. For there to be consolidation, there's what are you exactly you're consolidating? Here we're consolidating engineering talent and maybe patent portfolios, to the extent that those patent portfolios are actually useful, but we're not sure that's true yet, given that the products built in those patent portfolios haven't yet yielded a truly great product. But I think we'll continue to see consolidation of engineering talent and some underlying intellectual property until we actually have something that truly works for the market. And it's at that point we will know what that price point is. Yeah. And depending on who's shipping that product, that price point might be fully subsidized by other activities of the company. It could be like a Sony PlayStation sort of model where they're selling the hardware at or below cost in the hopes of making it up on the software, the content sales on the back end. Or if it's from a smaller player, they might have to actually survive just on the sale of the hardware itself. And so the prices might be a little bit different. But I think ultimately when we find a state in which millions of users are buying these sorts of devices, we're going to see it somewhere between the AirPod price point and the iPhone price point. Right? It's going to be somewhere in between those two that I think we're going to see a pair of glasses that is imbued with these sorts of capabilities that become useful. That's kind of where I see it falling right now.
Great. Well, look, I would want to wear the new Apple glasses that are being talked about more so than an Apple Watch, because I don't wear watches anymore. Even if it is connected to my smartphone or not, I just don't want to watch. And I like to be hands-free, of course. You can take your phone calls on your laptop these days as well without picking up your phone as well. So that's quite an important position. Apple is not the first to get into smart glasses, but they seem to have a strategy in the market that they look and learn and then take over basically and launch maybe the best product, right? I'm an Apple user, but unique designs, everything like that. I mean, what's your first impression of the Apple glasses, and what do you think the first experience they're going to push?
I think, well, we don't know exactly what those glasses are, so it's hard for me to have an impression specifically of what it is they're going to be pushing out, but I can speculate with the best of them. Apple's been playing with smart glasses for many years. They've been designing hardware, they've been designing software experiences, they've been iterating internally, they've been testing every piece of technology, and they're getting very smart about what can it do today. What are the sorts of experiences that are possible? And as you noted, Apple's never really been one to be first. It's not been their MO, certainly the last couple of decades. And they are very content to focus on taking the very best of the technology, making it a bit better, and doing a brilliant job of integrating it together and making you want it, to truly desire the product and how well it integrates with everything else that kind of fits within that particular ecosystem. That's their brilliance. How do we make something designed beautifully and really work well with everything else around it that we, of course, as Apple have also created? What is it that they're going to be doing with a first product out of the gate that is kind of a see-through glass? There's speculation also that Apple's doing more of a VR product, possibly also. a VR product that is meant more as a living room or entertainment-oriented experience, a product that might incorporate cameras on it that allows you to see the real world, but only through a video kind of replay of the real world. But it's really meant not for you out and about, but more in a confined space, whether that's your living room or your office or your home office, as it is these days. The other product that we are more excited about, I'm more excited about, is around this see-through, smart glass sort of product. And I would not be surprised, let me put it this way, I would not be surprised if we see a rather subtle approach to incorporating technology into things that people are already wearing on their face. So we already have people with prescription glasses that are being worn, and they have utility enough that people spend hundreds of dollars to buy these things to enhance our vision in the world. And what additional technology can we hang on this existing platform that can complement and kind of put the next foot forward in terms of what we want to do? And whether that's something as simple as incorporating the AirPods into the glasses themselves, a la the Bose, but prescription eyewear, or it starts to incorporate, basic display with notifications or other sorts of basic utility that complements the other devices that are already in that ecosystem on your person, right? It complements the smartphone experience. And they slowly build, kind of incrementally build up to something that's great. We even look back at the iPhone. That first version of the iPhone, there was no App Store. I'm not even sure, I don't remember there being GPS. Like there were a bunch of things that were not in that device that they added. They had a long-term plan to begin with, but they kind of incrementally worked through adding these extra capabilities until it was truly a mass market pervasive device.
And I was at a very small barbecue the other day, and they actually had an iPod working. So they last a long time, which to my surprise, and completely the reversal of that conversation is a contact lens option moving forward as well. And I just can't I'm not a contact lens guy. I have some glasses for my laptop because I read too much on a bright screen. But, a contact lens that has mixed reality, and it just seems to be 2001 Space Odyssey for me. Would you agree?
Well, I'm about to release an interview with Steve Sinclair, who's the head of product at Mojo Vision. And Mojo Vision is a company that is focused exactly on that problem. How do we incorporate this sort of visual overlay inside a pair of contacts? And it's a really interesting engineering problem. But the question that is less answered, even at this point, is will people like you or I actually put on that contact lens to enhance our experience with the real world versus putting on a pair of glasses? It's very possible they both coexist, right? They might have certain specific cases where one is far better than the other, and people are willing to put up with the burden of either one of those form factors, but we'll see. I'm more a fan of the glasses. I take them on, put them off, that sort of thing.
Yeah, no, so am I. So Jason, can you just give yourself a shout out on the AR podcast that you do so everyone can find you online?
Yeah, absolutely. So the podcast is The AR Show with Jason McDowall. That's me. So if you search AR Show Jason, you will find it in your favorite podcast listening device. And it's a forum within which I have done more than 100 episodes now. I think I'm 115 or so that I've released, where I get to interview folks in a conversation not unlike this, but mine is audio only, so you don't have to look at my mug the entire, long conversation. And these are very deep dive conversations. I love to chat with entrepreneurs, I chat with executives across the industry and investors as well, looking for their current perspective, their current activities in what's going on in the space. And my style is kind of very deep, long interview. You can tell I myself am very long-winded in all of my answers. I'm actually the one asking the questions. My questions are much less long-winded, but I enjoy the sort of in-depth interview that comes along with this sort of forum that podcasts enable. So you'll find a lot of really interesting, meaty conversations there.
Fantastic. Hey, Jason, you're certainly in a really great space, and congratulations on the success moving forward with over 400 patents. It's incredible.
Ostendo is an incredible technology company for sure. Yeah.
I really look forward to keeping an eye out on the progress of your company over the next coming years. And great to catch up again today. Thank you very much for your time and also your comments on everything. I think you got an answer in on everything. So well done. All right. Hey, thanks a lot, and we shall see you next time. Thanks very much, Jason.